Europe is experiencing the fastest growing refugee crisis since World War II. According to the UN, 2 million refugees have left the country, and a spokesperson for UNICEF says that includes 1 million children. But their journeys have been tough, with Russia continuing to shell cities despite agreeing to a ceasefire and multiple failed attempts to establish humanitarian corridors. Ukrainian officials were able to evacuate hundreds of people from the city of Suri, the first successful humanitarian corridor. But it came hours after Ukraine says Russia targeted civilians in that same city. And joining me now is Kimberly St. Julian Varnon. She's a historian and a PhD student at the University of Pennsylvania, and she's been in contact with African students in Sumy. So Kimberly, you tweeted earlier today that you were trusting the ceasefire in Sumy because it didn't seem like a Russian ploy. What made this corridor different than the others?
So I think the key thing for me was this is the first time I had seen a ceasefire discussion from the Ukrainian government about Sumy. I followed the Sumy municipal government on their Telegram channel, and they had also certified it. But also my students were getting in touch with me asking if this was real, because as we had seen, Russian disinformation about potential ceasefires in Sumy and Kharkiv had gotten a lot of people angsty and ready to go, but they had fallen apart and they didn't actually culminate. But the important part for me was the certification of the ceasefire by the Ukrainian government.
Where are the African students that you've been in contact with? I talked to you earlier this week on the radio, and you mentioned that you had been in regular communication. Give us an update on the status of the folks you've been talking to.
So I've been in contact with African students and Indian students from Sumy. And so up until yesterday, they were still stuck in their student dorms and, in and out of the bomb shelter, depending on the air raid alarms. But all of them that I've been able to contact, they're on their way to Poltava. They're out of Sumy. And so Poltava is near the midpoint of Ukraine, and many of them are heading forward to Lviv and trying to get out of Ukraine through Poland or Romania. So they are in a much better position today than they were yesterday.
I want to play you some sound from CIA Director William Burns testifying today before the House Intelligence Committee. Let's take a listen to that, and I'll get your reaction on the other side.
I think Putin is angry and frustrated right now. He's likely to double down and try to grind down the Ukrainian military with no regard for civilian casualties.
You mentioned that things are a lot better than they were, say, a week ago. But as Hagar was just explaining in the previous conversation, Putin is predictably, or all the experts saying he's going to double down here. I mean, what are some of the things that you are most concerned about as you're talking to people on the ground, so you have a really good sense of the real-time conditions? What are your biggest concerns in the short term?
So my biggest concerns are, one, getting these foreign students not just out of Poltava, but out of Ukraine, because as we've just seen, the war is going to get much worse and much harder for civilians. So that's my first concern. My second concern is we still have a very large, Ukrainian resident population that are staying. You have women who don't want to leave their husbands or their fathers. You have a lot of little children, whose parents, can't move them right now. Sick people, chronically ill people. There are a lot of people who simply do not have the resources to leave Ukraine right now. And they need food, they need water, and they need medicine. And so what we saw in Sumy today, there was this, 10-hour window in which buses could come and get people out of Sumy, not just foreign students, but also Sumy Ukrainian residents. They were leaving, but also some food and medicine came in. So I think the next part of this I'm concerned about is making sure those people who did stay, including if any foreign students did decide to stay, that they're still getting taken care of in this situation.
What are some of the obstacles? You mentioned people with different abilities, the elderly, folks who, can't carry their children on their backs to get out of Ukraine to, a place that is safe. Speak to some of those obstacles that people may not think about, because maybe they've never been in this situation where they literally have to put all their clothes on their back and escape for their lives.
Definitely. And so just for the students at Sumy, it was literally you have a go bag ready at any time, because the news about the ceasefire broke around 4 or 5 a.m. and they had to be ready to leave. But for many people, think about people who are chronically ill or who are disabled, who don't have freedom of movement. They can't just grab everything and get ready to go. For all these people who are stuck in hospital beds, they don't have these options. So I think we also need to keep the visibility on people who are chronically ill or who are disabled. But also, like Terrell Starr helped move a woman who's going through cancer treatment. She had to disrupt her cancer treatment to leave, right? So these are also incredibly vulnerable populations that we need to think about and consider who can't leave during this, and they still need our support.
We'll be talking in a few minutes later in the show specifically about the disability community and how they're being impacted by what's going on the ground in Ukraine. Kimberly St. Julian Varnon, thank you again for being here today and for giving us an update on the folks you've been in contact with. Please keep us posted and make sure to let us know if they are able to safely get out of Ukraine. And please stay safe yourself.
Hi, I'm Zerlina Maxwell. Thanks for checking out our channel on YouTube. You can see more from Zerlina by clicking any of the videos on this screen, and make sure you subscribe below to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. Thanks for watching.